The Pod Bay Door, a Las Vegas podcast.
The shows I liked the most were the cheap ones, like Popovich and his trained house cats. Who doesn't
cats,
like
yeah.
cats and dogs, man, in a
know,
show?
right? Vegas has the opportunity to return to quality and say no to quantity. Well, Las Vegas has this rare opportunity to start over and make quality entertainment, quality foods, quality venues. We're going to talk about the history of the Las Vegas Showgirl, a little bit of showgirl history in general.
Good. I like showgirls.
I
miss
do
them.
too. I miss them. Yeah, I miss the classic ones. I miss all the shows.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just-
Now the news in the last couple of weeks was Le Rev at the
I know.
at the Wynn, which was people thought was Cirque du Soleil. It's a lot like it. It had the same producer.
Yes.
But it's closing permanently. It ran from 2004.
Yeah,
I remember I saw it's one of the last shows I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, terribly sad on that one.
Yeah.
Just so many, and I know that all the people behind the scenes of the shows they're starting to, there's a movement, to start, picketing and petitioning, like grips and audio people and lighting. They're stuck. They don't know if they should go or stay or, Le Rev was a terrible loss. But we're going to talk about the history of the Showgirl. We got some housekeeping to do though.
Yeah.
Quite a few things, actually.
Oh, I got to do that too. Housekeeping.
I know,
I'm
right?
meaning the vacuum.
Right.
Damn it.
Okay. So prior to doing the show today, you had brought up the cell phone tracing, yeah?
Yeah.
A company called ProPublica Investigations have started a cell phone tracing program.
Mm.
Now, I found the sample size interesting. Mid-July, they did a sample size or a sample time frame of about a week to 10 days. 26,000 devices were on the strip that they sampled.
Yeah.
And then those devices then traveled to every state in the union except Maine.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Here's some numbers. 3,700 traveled back to California. Not a surprise.
Yeah.
2,700 traveled to Arizona, 1,000 to Texas, and then a smattering 500 or less to the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, and so on, Chicago as well. And so this, along with there's an app that's coming, which I'm going to pull up here in just a second, for all of this tracing that they want to do. Now, MGM, when asked for a comment, they were asked for several comments. They were asked about this tracing program. They wouldn't comment. They were asked about the number of COVID informational emails they have received. No comment.
Mm.
They were asked how many communications they have originated to the CDC or to the state health officials. No comment. Interesting.
Mm.
There were several doctors. I don't know their qualifications. Like any other doctor, they probably have some and not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And it depends on. Sometimes, it was one of Rush Limbaugh's tricks was always have some doctor. He would call him a doctor, talk about,
Right.
the how terrible social medicine was, but it wasn't. He wasn't a medical doctor. He's a PhD.
Yeah.
Some.
So these doctors, they were definitely MDs, they weren't PhDs in this particular case. They were asked, should Las Vegas close? And all of them unanimously said no. Which was good news. But the bad news is, and they all said essentially the same thing, is that closing creates a whole different set of problems. And they all admitted that they were not researchers. These are not doctors of research.
Yeah, yes.
They were, medical doctors.
Yes.
One of which was a GP.
Yeah.
And they all agreed in their way that the math is really impossible right now. It's just there's no way to figure out and give a positive answer, yes or no. Should Las Vegas close? We're not sure. We don't know which way to go because we don't have the numbers yet.
Yeah.
So this ProPublica Investigations has put themselves out there and said, hey, we can do this based on cell phones, but the problem, and the one doctor said almost immediately, well, okay, we know where they went, but we don't know their status. Because the article was clickbait, of course.
Yeah.
Cell phones are a way to tell, that Las Vegas is infecting the world. It's like, well, no, that's not true. It's a way to tell that people have visited Las Vegas and gone home.
Yeah.
But there's no way for the cell phone to continue the tracing. You would have to contact them.
Yeah, and see if they were infected either before or after they got here.
Which then brings up this I found interesting.
Yeah, and you see, there's also something interesting here, Jamie, that a lot of people just don't realize or think about. Most doctors, most MDs or general practitioners or whatever, they don't read the research, right? They're not epidemiologists,
Yes.
right? They're not that type of research people.
Right.
Those are the ones with PhDs, and they're very, very skilled at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't treat illness. A lot of them have gone through the same background. They understand the disease,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they understand it's like a builder is not an architect.
Right.
So they often don't read that research any more than I know teachers do not read research that's done on education or on learning.
Right.
They're the classroom practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they get into a mold of they particularly with GPs. They treat probably most of them in a small town or small city are going to treat the same 10, 15 things,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be really good at that. But anything exotic, malaria or something they don't know what to do
Of course.
because they've never seen it, right? I mean,
Right.
that's an issue here in the U.S. about people bringing in exotic diseases if they've been someplace.
Yeah.
They've never treated them. They might have had a lecture on it.
Yeah.
So sometimes the idea of even somebody like Dr. Fauci, who is an expert on that, we've seen Rand Paul make some ridiculous comments on we should be more like Sweden,
Yeah.
and then we find out that Sweden had their largest increase in death the first 6 months of 2020 than they've had in over 100 years.
Right.
And it's just like they've had the largest, COVID-19 number of deaths in of any of the other Scandinavian countries. Yes, Rand Paul does have a medical degree. He's a doctor, but he doesn't study, infectious diseases. It's not his specialty.
Right.
So
to continue Las Vegas's sort of pioneering of the use of cell phones. So now we have the ProPublica Investigations, which can then trace the cell phone or devices or tablets, whatever. Then it says in an article of yesterday, the state of Nevada is launching an app on Monday that will allow people who have tested positive for COVID-19 to discreetly notify their close contacts of possible exposure. The contact tracing app called COVID Trace will be entirely opt-in, meaning that not only will users have to download the app in order to take advantage, but they will have to fill in the information on their own. So now that's step 2 for contact tracing with the use of devices. And it's all coming out of Las Vegas. Now, of course, if you are a pioneer of that particular technology, you're gonna be labeled ground zero, which of course it is. So I don't know what I think about that. I like the use of technology, and I think that Nevada should be in the forefront. Especially if we want to get back on track and be considered progressive and forward moving in getting past all this. So very interesting. That's the next bit of housekeeping here. I don't know if you know. Do you know that there's a coinage shortage in the United States?
Yes, I've heard of that. I got a nickel in my pocket, I think.
Essentially one of the oldest hotels in town, the El Cortez. We know it as the El Commode.
Yep.
It's actually much nicer now. Still has a great steakhouse. They are one of the last, if not the last, coinage-based slot machine houses in town.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they shut it all down.
Yeah.
And they thought they were going to be able to, just bring it right back up as people are starting to visit again. And what they didn't realize in an article of the last few days is that they went to order their coinage from Brinks.
Yeah.
They ordered $20,000 in coinage, and Brinks said, "Yeah, you can have 500."
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they're
I got some money. I'll sell it to them cheap.
Oh, and they'll take it.
Yeah.
Very interesting problem. I didn't realize that. I mean, it is, and it's one of those problems that's there's no workaround to it. There's no logical, we can do this instead.
Yeah.
Because their option is to, of course, change their machines, upgrade, if you will.
And I see, I like those old coin ones. So
I do too.
Because, as a kid, I remember, somebody would come back and give me silver dollars.
Yeah.
Or $50, either one.
Right.
And you knew that they had been to Nevada. I mean, from where I was living in Northern California, it was usually Reno that people went. But either one, you must have gone and played slot machines. Or they would save their coins.
Right.
That was a big thing. They'd have a big mason jar or something like that. And they would put all their spare change for the next trip to Reno, and where they were going to put it in the slot machines.
Oh, when I was a kid, I used to love putting pennies in the wrappers. Yeah.
And I remember people when they were talking about where you going on vacation, and they would just say things like ka-chink, ka-chink, because it was the sound of the slot machine. Now that doesn't make any sense anymore.
Well, the digital sound isn't the same. Especially with the dollar coins they used to slam down into the buckets. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Another piece of Las Vegas lore. Are you familiar with the game Sigma Derby?
No.
Sigma Derby is it's entirely fun. It's so fun. What it is, it's a horse racing game.
Yeah, it sounds like one.
And you place coinage, usually quarters, into it, and the horse. It's a lot like when you used to spray water into a clown's mouth or something.
Yeah.
And the horses would run
I used to,
just like that.
Yeah.
And it's randomized, of course.
Yeah.
But it's old. It's metal. You used to watch it through.
I didn't know what it was called.
Yeah, it's called Sigma Derby. Well, of course, with all the the Sex and the City and Mummy and Star Wars slot machines and poker machines, Sigma Derby started to just become a dinosaur. Well, now these casinos are wanting to get rid of it. So there's this huge movement. Well, it's becoming huge. Of all the people that know it like I do, and now you, and the D Hotel downtown, pretty good place. They have started this movement, and they've actually have all this swag that you can donate and get. Like I save Sigma Derby. They're trying to save it from being basically recycled. And so there's this huge movement, and I mean, we're talking thousands of people that know what Sigma Derby is, and they're trying to save it. And one of the few ones left is at the D.
No.
So it's I thought that was interesting.
Those are always fun.
Yeah. Now I would love to see it, go to, if they can't save it, if the casino bosses say no, we'd rather use the square footage for, something that makes a lot of money. I'd love to see it go to the Pinball Hall of Fame.
The Pinball Hall of Fame is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I have a friend, when he comes here, he basically just camps out there.
Yeah.
He's there all day.
Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah. And then I said, well, I'll come see you when you want to break away for an hour or so. And, and he goes, oh, this place is great. He comes down from Colorado.
Oh, wow.
Just to go to the Pinball Museum.
It's a great place. I highly recommend it. All right. There's something bad.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I heard Sundance Helicopters is closing.
I heard that too.
Yeah.
No confirmation, but
it was this morning, so they're closing permanently except for private charters.
Okay.
So that's too bad.
That is too bad.
We didn't use them a lot at the Venetian. We used Maverick, but but nevertheless, they were a secondary vendor.
They were, and they were quality. And they did a lot of work with the motion pictures too.
Yeah.
They and Maverick. Okay, so I don't pay a lot of attention to iTunes. iTunes still, of course, or Apple Podcasts is what it's called now.
Except ours.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is what it is. It's sort of a trunking system to get your podcast out there, and that's great. They do a great job. But I looked the other day, and we had I'll call it a negative comment, but it was a qualified negative comment. Now I have some things to say about it, but it was an email identification. I'm not even going to mention that, but the person basically said that he was extremely disappointed. I believe in the last or the 2 podcasts ago, he listens to us because we're Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And he said, quote, "It's supposed to be about Las Vegas and gambling." Okay, there's my first problem. And then he continues on saying that if he wanted to hear about politics, he would listen to blah, blah. And then he went on, and I know you're going to lose it, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but he then went on to say, if you're going to talk about politics, be balanced. And if we were going to do what we did, we should have mentioned Ben Shapiro and the Young Turks and so on and so forth. And I just kind of cocked my head a little bit, because usually comments are comments, and I like them all.
Yeah.
And then he signed off the email. He was not rude, and he was well spoken. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
And he was not profane. Appreciate that a lot too. He signed off by saying, well, he referred to our podcast as a pretty decent podcast. Really have enjoyed it up to now. Good luck. So if you take it in that context, he doesn't want to listen anymore. I don't know what he meant by that, but I have something to say.
Yeah.
And I'll let you chime in a little bit.
All right.
And then we'll get to the history of the Showgirls, which is way more fun.
Yeah.
First off, I want to thank him for the comment. He or she, I don't know if he or she.
Yeah.
Because it says they were listening. And I enjoy, as John and I have always said, we enjoy being involved in a elevated level of discourse.
Yeah.
And we enjoy the town, and we enjoy the people, and we really do appreciate our listeners. So I want to thank that person for not only listening up to this point, and commenting, because you don't have to comment. You can just let it go. So thank you for that. And I hope you all do continue listening. Now, about Las Vegas, I have said in the definitions, I have said in our taglines, I have said in every possible marketing of this podcast, it is about Las Vegas as a whole.
Yeah.
Gambling, politics, religion, food, entertainment, and so on. That we focused on politics once, maybe twice, or maybe had a comment. That's part of the game here. Because honestly, I'm speaking for myself, maybe for John, at some point in a Las Vegas veteran's career, gambling gets a little boring.
Yeah, and there's plenty of other ones to do. We don't gamble.
Yes.
I don't gamble. I mean, if you live here, you tend not to do that.
There's so much more to Las Vegas than gambling. I can't even tell you. And that's why we are pushing 150 episodes, because there is more to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, the industry knows that, because the gaming revenue, besides COVID-19, has been falling. You know, the Cosmo was the first hotel a couple years ago to make more money from restaurants and shopping than it did from gaming. Right. And we have the Vidara, which is part of that group there, City Center, and they don't even have a casino.
Yeah.
You know, there's more than that. Now we understand the games, and probably that's the reason why we don't play them, right?
Right.
Yeah, and also just a general comment: not all political shows need to be balanced. That's usually a right wing thing, because we know with Fox News that they have always said, you know, fair and balanced, and they're not. There have been plenty of studies on that. And they used to always attack Michael Moore. And, you know, Michael Moore made a good comment. Sometimes he says things that I absolutely don't agree with. And sometimes he says things I do agree with. But he says his movies, and I do like his movies, should not be seen. They're not documentaries. He says they're video essays. And like any other essay, it's an opinion piece. You're giving his opinion. He doesn't have to be, quote unquote, balanced. So when we talk, you and I have differences on a lot of things.
Yes.
But nevertheless, I don't think I have to need to be balanced.
No,
because that's my view. And I know from other people, and I also say, I know where I'm coming from is by today's standards, way to the left. Now it's funny. I've been reading, finally gotten around to reading Nixonland by Rick Perlstein. And I read back and I thought, my God, have we really gone this far? Because I read what LBJ was saying in 1965. And I thought he is so far to the left of Bernie Sanders in what he said.
Right.
And at that time, LBJ had just won a landslide over the nut wing at that time, Barry Goldwater, 60% of the vote. And this is how people thought. And they were so far to the left of even anywhere. I mean, Joe Biden is to me, they're Republican. They're a Republican Party now compared to, what they were. So, if we don't present your point of view on that, well, and again, we try to say the politics as it affects Las Vegas, and COVID-19 is now a political issue, right?
No, it is a political
really
issue,
is.
and we are. It is a hot button issue for Las Vegas.
Yes,
and it's something that needs to be talked about, especially for the number of people that ask about the safety of coming here and how to be safe and so on. Now, you took my steam, John.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just kidding. Back to the balance part.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. We are not representatives of the DNC. We are not representatives of the RNC. We're not representatives of Fox, MSNBC, CNN, or any of them. We're just two guys in a studio talking about Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And again, all of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And we don't even have to be balanced when it comes to Las Vegas issues.
Yeah.
Like the new restaurant movements, like community dining, and which is gone now, of course. I want that gone. We don't need to be balanced. We can talk about what we don't want here.
Yeah.
And what we do want here, and it's two gentlemen's opinions.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I was going to say on our other podcast, in the Invisible Maybe.
Yeah.
My disclaimer that I always said, I may be full of shit.
Yeah.
You may think I'm full of shit. That's fine. And I may even go back later on and listen and say, you know what? I don't agree with what I said before. I think I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And I'll say I was full of shit.
Yeah.
So,
and although this person was chastising and calling us to the mat, broke my number one rule.
Yeah.
And this is the last time I'll chastise this person.
Yeah.
Is you didn't provide a solution.
Yeah.
If you're going to identify a problem, provide a solution.
Yeah.
What do you want instead?
Yeah.
Well, we do talk about Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But I go back to my very first statement. Whoever this was commented on iTunes. And I despise iTunes level. I mean, you can put a 1 star with no comment.
Yeah.
Or you can comment and it's just hidden. I hate it. But to this person, no matter what, I thank you for the comment. I thank you for listening. And I think it's wonderful. This is what podcasts were supposed to be.
Yeah.
They weren't supposed to be marketing tools for the big corporations and for celebrities. They were supposed to be for guys like you and me, everyday guys that want to talk about stuff and then find other people that want to talk about stuff. So that being said, let's talk about Showgirls.
Let's talk about Showgirls. I'll and then later I'll talk about when I met a showgirl.
Okay.
In full regalia.
I've met.
Oh, you used to
many.
photograph.
Yes, I've met many.
That was a tough job, Jamie.
Yes, I know.
I really felt sorry for you.
These are not going to be in any particular time chronological order. In fact, it's going to be jumping around a little bit, so I apologize about that. 1941.
Wow.
At the El Rancho.
Yep.
Basically is the first Las Vegas showgirl. Basically,
yeah,
they weren't really showgirls per se. They were to take the attention away during something else. But 1941 at the El Rancho, and the El Rancho was actually before the El Cortez, if anybody cares to know.
Yeah.
The El Cortez always gets the first of whatever. It wasn't. It was the El Rancho.
Whoever owns the El Cortez must have so much money stashed away.
Oh my gosh.
He can live through the. You can be there. The only hotel left be the El Cortez.
That's right. It's all in just silver coins buried under the building. Then in 1952 they were decided to start using the girls and costuming them specifically to open for the headliners. Sometimes, and it's funny, in the verbiage, several articles I read, the verbiage was all the same. Sometimes dancing with the headliner. They made a big deal about that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why, but
I can't see Frank Sinatra kicking his legs up and down.
No, right?
Wow.
And one of the first to use that system, who was it? Who do you think? Around 1952. You know him. You know of him. I don't think you know him.
Not Bugsy.
No.
No.
No, after that.
All right, after.
An entertainer.
I'm sorry, an entertainer.
Yeah. Who was the first to sort of embrace the showgirls, dancing with him and dancing around them? And he was a comedian. He was a singer. Classic.
Oh. He a singer too and a comedian?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I can't think of it.
Danny Thomas.
Oh, right.
Danny
Okay.
Thomas. Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
knew Danny. I don't think of Danny Thomas as a singer. I always thought of him.
Well, he wasn't. Yeah, that
His
wasn't.
daughter was sure cute.
Yes.
Marlo.
1957. Minsky's Follies then became.
Oh yeah.
Then became, and that was at the Desert Inn.
Yep.
And has the distinction of being the first topless show.
Good.
Yeah, the first topless showgirls available.
They always think of the topless as like something that just happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, the Lido de Paris for 31 years
Yep.
at the Stardust.
Yes.
And they continued
When did they finish?
31 years from last year. So what was
So that was 2019. So we're looking
19, and then it's 2000, and then 12 years from that.
about 89.
89. Yeah, around 89.
Okay, because they did have another Showgirl review, because that's where I stayed at the Stardust.
Yeah.
Now, to me, you get to that point where I realize, oh shit, I've heard about this happening.
Yeah.
When you start thinking of like, you one day, you look back and you think it was last week and it was 20 years ago. And that's how it was. It was 1999, you know, and I stayed at the Starbucks. see, that's what happened. I stayed at Starbucks. I stayed at the Stardust.
Their subliminal advertising is working.
$35 a night.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because I'm just going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to sleep and take a shower in the room, and the rest of the time I'm going to be out.
Yeah.
And because I'm thinking of moving there
to
Las Vegas. So I'm visiting from Japan, and I'm there, and I'm checking in, and I got my suitcase. I'm going to walk to the room. And I hear this hi, and I turn around, and here's this gorgeous showgirl dressed up. You know, she's got the feather hat on and everything.
Right.
And really, what I remembered, besides she was really pretty, was she had amazing abs.
Right.
You know, and just like, wow, because, that's it. A lot of people, you think of a topless show. Look, it's not a strip show, right? These women are topless. They don't have big floppy ones, right? I mean, because they're dancers.
Right.
They're going to be really lean.
Yes.
For the most part. They got great figures and bodies. They're just not Jane Mansfield type. They're just not, Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
Which
I was going to say going way back.
Yeah. So I kept trying to think of something more modern, right? Yeah, I saw Kim Kardashian in a bikini or something. I looked and said, oh shit. You know what? My reaction to her is like a lot of women react to competitive bodybuilders. It's just too much.
Yeah, it's over voluptuous.
Yes, it's too much. It's too much. Slim it down, sweetheart.
But now turning the clock a little further back,
yes.
The original Showgirls, of course, came from Paris.
Yes.
Debuted somewhere between the 1800s and 1900s.
Yeah.
Folies Bergère in 1869.
Gotta love them.
1869.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And then, of course, the very first nude showgirl, they weren't called showgirls back then. The very first one was 1918. That was the very first nude performing woman on stage.
Where was that at?
Folies Bergère.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It started in 69, but didn't start the nude thing until the 1918. The first U.S. showgirl. Was not Vegas. It was Ziegfeld Follies in 1907.
Yeah.
Now, interesting. Margaret, pardon me for mispronouncing this, Levavici got together, and her nickname was Miss Bluebell.
Oh, okay, nice.
And she started basically a showgirl company that performed throughout the United States. She got connected with a very famous Las Vegas producer, Don Arden.
Yeah. Arden was famous.
And started producing Jubilee, Folies Bergère, and so on.
Yeah.
And then also in the 50s, Jack Entratter started the Copa Girls, and the Copa Girls took over when the Minsky's Follies. The Copa Girls took over, and then Miss Bluebell took it from there, and then Bluebell and Don Arden, their combination, took it from there. And then fast forward a lot to 1992. When the corporations took over, that's when things changed. Roundabout then is the idea of the family Las Vegas.
Oh yes, that's right.
Where you bring children.
Yes. And they're not supposed to look at the body. Human body is dirty.
Yeah, it's dirty.
Yeah. Moralistic.
Which
We haven't come
changed.
anywhere, Jamie, since the damn Pilgrims.
I know.
You know?
I know. Now, of course, that's when we emphasized, and we used to tell people about this all the time. We joke about it all the time. The 7:30 and 10:30 show.
Yes.
7:30 was a family show, which really wasn't a family show. It was just everybody had their clothes on.
Yeah, they were covered.
And of course, 10:30 was topless.
Yeah.
And no, that didn't mean they rolled the roof. They opened the
On
roof.
the roof, yeah, we heard that too.
Not like the Astrodome or anything. But that's we talked about that all the time.
Yeah.
But then as we lip into the 2000s,
Yeah.
Cirque du Soleil was already a force in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, with Mystere.
Mystere.
Yeah.
But then they started producing more shows.
Yeah.
Traveling shows, and then those shows decided to come to Vegas after they traveled a bit. And now, of course, well, now it's a little bit different. We can talk about that in a second. Then they would make Cirque du Soleil decided to start their tent process, where they would go to Orlando, they would go to Miami, they would go to California, and provide that. But they always came to Vegas to add that show. We have Mystere, we have Ka, we have Zumanity, we had not Lerev, like you said.
Yeah.
Same director and producer.
Ones, yeah.
And so on.
Yeah. And then you have the theme ones. You had the Michael Jackson one and the Beatles.
Yeah, we had the one, and we have the Beatles' Love, and so on and so forth. And they were all fantastic. I love the shows, you know. All the while, we had the show. We have Penn and Teller, of course, still going strong, and they're going to come back. And we have the stand-up comedian process at the Mirage. They really got good at that.
Yeah. They used to have Danny Gans, remember?
Danny Gans, amazing voice performer. Sadly passed away. And then the comedy club started really getting steam in the 90s and then came into the 2000s very heavily. All the while, though, the Showgirls shows were still existing.
Yep.
The Jubilees, the Folies Bergères, the Crazy Girls, if you wanted a little bit more strip clubby.
Yeah, little beer, tier B.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Definitely.
B level, but
and
then we saw one. Remember, it was a Hot Girls or something out at the Golden Nugget.
Golden Nugget, Hot Girls. It was Hot Girls, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were Hot Girls. And that's why it was only one show at 11 o'clock.
And then, of course, the show, not the strip club, which we had two strip clubs called Crazy Horse. We had Crazy Horse and Crazy Horse 2. I attended both of them.
Yes.
They were okay.
Yeah.
They were dark and strip clubs, and that's what they were. But we had Crazy Horse at the MGM. I had a friend who was in it.
Yeah, we saw that. We went to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Odd show.
Yeah.
Beautiful girls.
Yeah.
And very interestingly produced, but directly from Paris.
Yeah.
If you wanted the feeling of the original Paris show,
it was
that was
it.
it.
Yeah.
No longer. And unfortunately, my friend, went off to a different show. But fast forward to prior to COVID, and we lost them. We lost the Showgirls.
Yeah. The funny thing with Las Vegas, in a lot of ways, is talking about kind of a microcosm of the U.S. is a whole keeping up with the Joneses. They see something that was successful or popular, like Mystere. Mm-hmm. Everybody has to have one, and in a lot of ways, Cirque du Soleil is an anomaly because it is kind of this artsy show type, and it's here in Las Vegas, which usually that sort of thing doesn't go over well. We tried museums, they flopped. Really, except for like the Mob Museum, which is downtown. But we had one at the Venetian, we had the Guggenheim, and it didn't last. The Wynn had the museum, best they still do, but it was never really. I mean, it was basically originally just a showpiece for Steve Wynn, because it was all his own artwork.
His stuff, yeah.
It was all his own stuff.
Yeah.
So they would have that, and we rarely got people asking us about what was at the museum.
Yeah.
So then you have all this, and that's fine to have and Mystere, but we also need to have the Showgirls. And people expect that, I think, when they come here, because it's iconic. It's like going to San Francisco not having cable cars.
I think so. I think Las Vegas is going to come back. It's absolutely going to come back.
Yeah.
It's going to come back with a little bit of the panache and the style of old Vegas. I think we're going to have to, because I think that type of style is brass tacks. I think it's going to be cheaper for them to pull off.
Yeah.
We don't have to have all these splashy, wonderful things. And, we can just have a really good singer and a really good showgirl line and a really good whatever.
Yeah.
I think Las Vegas is going to come back doing things really well again. And I think that's what we can look forward to. Speaking of the art museums, Bellagio still was the one that lasted.
Yeah.
Bellagio's art museum. Again, Steve Wins.
Yeah.
You remember when he poked a hole in his own painting and had to have it
Oh
repaired?
yeah, that was funny. Yeah. It only cost like $1 million or
Right.
something.
And he
like
paid
that.
it. He paid it gladly. And apparently the guy who did it was just a master.
Yeah.
But yeah, poked a hole in his own classic painting.
Shit.
Oh wonderful.
Yeah. But still, you know, even then, we did not get a lot of calls for. I mean, that was when they're really trying to go upscale and appeal to certain people and be more refined. Same with the restaurants.
Sure.
And they're finding that a lot of the celebrity chefs have been smart enough to come out with the more casual dining experience.
Right.
Which just means, what do you mean you don't have sloppy joes? Right.
Right. No, and no, we very few requests to go see art. Lots of requests to go see the art in its own self, the gardens, the Bellagio Gardens, and endless requests to see the Dale Chihuly exhibit, which really wasn't an exhibit.
No,
it was a one piece
in the lobby. And really, to me, I mean, I've seen a lot of Chihuly stuff because I lived in Monterey and he did the wonderful work in with the jellyfish.
Yes, and
that's great. And I look at the one at the Bellagio and saying, he's done better.
Yeah, I mean, it's proof positive that his name carries a lot of weight.
Yeah,
but it's beautiful to see. But it's kind of, again, I'm going to have to reference Vegas Vacation and looking at the Grand Canyon. And it's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really
at
just
least it's free. They don't charge
it's free.
you to look,
Exactly.
look up in the ceiling.
But okay, so now we've fast forwarded. We've lost our girls. We've lost our showgirls. We've lost our shows. There's now we're just before COVID, we were down to smaller auditoriums, really small.
Yeah.
Like sponsored, for example, by Planet Hollywood. They have many different tiny showrooms, having many different shows. Some sharing. Those. I saw, of course, I've said many times. I think was a wonderful show. Zombie Burlesque. I swear. I have a part of my house that's probably bigger. It was like sitting in a hallway with school chairs, but I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I hope they come back. So now we're here now, and I have to, we're not being negative. I'm sad. Le Rev, and it's not like they made the announcement that we're assessing. A lot of things we're assessing with, where we're going to be. Can we afford the people? So we're done.
Yeah. They're not coming back,
and it's beyond our pay grade. I know. And it's probably the most prudent decision, but, it's got to be hard on them too.
Yeah.
And especially the individual, of course, the execs that are making that decision, then it trickles down to the people that have to make the phone calls of the people, that actually work there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're done.
Yeah, this is the only time. You remember one of the flaws of the Venetian when we were there in terms of competing with the Bellagio.
Just one.
Oh, there were a lot of ones, but the one thing where they really failed. I mean, you could look at again, they would get comparison with the Bellagio. The Italian themes. They both have. I think that our lobby looked nicer. Or at least around our desk.
For sure.
Than that one there.
Yeah.
But they had that really nice. The flower exhibit, the atrium there. That was beautiful. The flower garden. In the Bellagio, and they had the lake out front. We had the canals, whatever. You could compare restaurants and what have you.
Right.
But they had and we had nothing. We had like Andrew Dice Clay, or we had Charo, and we had like
Blue Man Group.
Well, that came later after I left, but that was okay because that came over from the left. They never really had a good. They had Phantom of the Opera again. It was another highbrow thing.
Yeah.
Briefly, I saw it there.
Good staging.
They spent a lot of money on that. It was the only one. It's the only touring production of Phantom that ever lost money. And the Venetian didn't lose much money, but they never had really a top show. So that's the one thing where they came out and said, "Hey, we didn't have to shut down a big show."
Yeah,
right.
I think another thing that the Venetian failed at, and it was an obvious one, and you can take the Bellagio an example. We had I agree, we had a way better lobby.
Yeah.
Than the Bellagio. Bellagio's. Once you get the garden, if you don't count the garden, if you consider that an exhibit, and the lobby of the Bellagio is kind of a snore.
Yeah, it's too close to the casino too.
It was. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what they did, which was really great, is they hit you with a piano player.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah.
And he was quite famous. I mean, he was fantastic. They had several of them, but there was one guy that was very good, very famous. And the Venetian just didn't do that. You know, they had their big marble hallway and the Oculus and
they had the traveling minstrel people
and the minstrels,
there, but that was upstairs mostly.
Yeah, and they came downstairs sometimes, but mainly upstairs.
Only came down when there was a crisis, like the computers were down,
like when we opened.
Like when we opened, and people are drunk, and then they bring these guys. I said, no, don't do that. Poor bastard on those stilts is going to end up in the fountain.
Yeah, they would send the singers and the alcohol.
Yeah, don't.
Neither of which I think really mollified the crowd.
Yeah, yes, particularly the alcohol.
Right.
That only it only made it worse. I don't know how many times somebody called me an asshole that day when we were there, because they would walk by, because again, they finally got checked in and they're pissed off.
Yeah.
And they have to walk right in front of the desk, and I'm standing there, and it's the prejudice of people looking at age, thinking that the oldest person there,
right? And
I'm working with these 20-year-old somethings at that time, and thinking that this must be the guy in charge.
Yes,
I was just a schlub like everybody else.
I had that same disease.
Yeah.
But do we want the showgirl to come back? Oh my gosh, I do so much.
Not just one. I want them all.
I want them all to come back. And I want new wave and old wave and whatever showgirl they want to bring back, bring him back.
Yeah.
I would bring back a showgirl before I brought back acrobatics.
Yeah,
I would. Yeah, I would. And
if they bring back acrobatics, just like they had at Circus. Right, they had the free show.
Acrobats.
They had actual acrobats.
Yes.
I mean, they weren't like the real classy ones, but they did they did the trapeze. Yeah. And it was free.
It was fun,
and it was fun. And the other shows, people, the shows I liked the most were the cheap ones, like Popovich and his trained house cats. Who doesn't cats, like cats and dogs, man? In a show, right? The dog pushing the cat in a shopping cart. Yeah, oh, isn't that great? I paid $10 for Matt King. Still does it. Matt King is still around.
Yes,
does a great show, afternoon show. Remember, I paid because I got a local discount. I paid $10. This is the price of a movie. And the thing is that they don't charge you less money if it's a bad movie, right? It could be really bad movie. It could be like Flashdance bad.
Yeah.
It could be that bad, and you still pay the same price as if it's a really good movie, right?
Yeah.
Matt King, it was $10, and it included a drink.
Right, exactly.
And I had a drink. I had, an $8 glass of wine.
Exactly.
And it came in a plastic cup, but it doesn't matter. It's wine, and it's free. I mean, it's not. It's $10, and I get a live show for an hour and a half, for an hour, and I get a free drink. It was great
for sure. And the very few good things about this virus issue, but one good thing, the virus has fought away, is parking fees.
Yes,
we are now fully open for free parking.
Yes.
I don't know of anybody that's not.
Yeah,
that's not.
Which is So I'm more hoping that
I hope they leave it.
It'll rise from the ashes.
It will.
And when it does, let's hope that here's a chance for a rebirth, and may hopefully bring back, because people, even when I worked there, in 2000, 2001, 1999, when people were even then were nostalgic for a time that there was that kind of that crossroads where they were coming expecting the old Vegas, and then they were still getting the family Vegas and the corporate Vegas. They wanted lounge singers. Well, we had lounge entertainment, but they weren't really well promoted. They were just, there wasn't anybody big. They would ask about them, and we don't know.
Well, I think, and I am absolutely not going to be balanced here. I think that Las Vegas's return, its rebirth, its rising from the flames, is going to say no to the millennial influence of what happened here just before the virus.
Yeah.
It's going to say no to whatever new influences Gen Z is going to demand. And it's going to say two things. One, we're going to go back to a simpler time, a less expensive time for the corporations, but a more enjoyable time for its patronage. And I think they're going to look at the people with the disposable income again. Instead of hoping for a disposable income from a new generation, they're going to look to the generation with a disposable income, and they're going to say, what do you want? And I'm hoping there's a hue and cry. We want it simple. We want it beautiful. We want it well done.
Yeah, they want it what matches their impression of it.
Yes.
And they get that from movies.
Yeah.
Very often. They look at Casino, and they kind of forget that movie took place a long time ago. I mean, for us, it's not that long ago, but it took place in the 70s. or even before then. You know, there's other movies, Rat Pack,
Yeah.
Ocean's 11, and what have you. So that's kind of what they would like to see or somehow expect. And even if it's just a segment, it still should be there for those that want to see that. We still have Elvis stuff. Elvis has been dead for over 40 years.
Las Vegas has the opportunity to return to quality and say no to quantity. Las Vegas has this rare opportunity to start over and make quality entertainment, quality foods, quality venues. And not to say we can't still have the esports and we can't have this and we can't have that.
No,
it can be something for everybody. It always has. She will survive. But I really do.
We had, we go back, we think of Liberace. And again, he was really represented Las Vegas.
I never think of Liberace, John.
But he was flamboyant and gaudy and like I said, like Las Vegas, he was kind of the
hell of a piano player.
Yeah, he was. Las Vegas made manifest in human form.
Yeah.
And then he kind of passed the torch in a different way to like Siegfried and Roy.
Yes.
Their show was, and if somebody said I saw Siegfried and Roy, he said, "Oh, you must have gone to Las Vegas." So you had this passing of the torch, and then it's just like Cirque du Soleil. I'm sorry, it's great and all of that, but you can see Cirque du Soleil in Portland, Oregon. I did. You can see them in San Francisco. Might not be the exact same show, but come on, it's acrobatics. Right, it might be a different theme, whatever. Most people are seeing shows in Las Vegas anywhere drunk.
Yeah,
right. They're not going to remember.
Now, I just thought of another sort of argument for our listener on iTunes.
Yeah,
I learned recently that directly from an individual from Chicago.
Yeah,
that they know nothing about what's going on in Vegas. Nothing whatsoever. And she wasn't even speaking of shows. She was speaking of the fact that, are you able to go out? Are you allowed? Can you even park? Do you have to wear a mask? Do you have to wear a mask all the time? And again, John and I have prided ourselves in all these episodes in bringing up things that help the visitors, that's fun for us to talk about, and that is interesting for general listeners. And what I'm learning more and more is that, and which is why Las Vegas markets from, coast to coast, because people don't know.
Yeah.
People, I can't tell you the number of people, I haven't been to Vegas. Is it neat? Is it cool? Oh, I'm going to Vegas for the first time. And they're just shaking with excitement, or used to be. Again, that's why we talk about so many things, and politics and medical things and COVID and gaming and food. And honestly, podcasts, unless you're beholden to a corporation, podcasts are to talk about the stuff that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Look at Mr. Rogan. That's all he does. And he talks about, and he has people on his podcast he wants to talk to.
Yeah.
And he talks about subjects he wants to talk about.
Yeah.
And he rarely kowtows to what's going on and what should happen and everything else. So keep that in mind, all of our wonderful listeners. We don't need, like John said, we don't need to be balanced. We need to talk about Las Vegas. And that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And the balance point of what somebody might mean by what's balance, right? You could have something that's not necessarily right in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of dull.
And I don't consider talking about this individual and then talking about this individual and then somehow linking them to your central subject. That's not balanced.
Yeah.
You could have two nutbags.
Yeah.
But we wanted to talk about it that day.
Oh, you and me.
Yeah.
The two nutbags.
Yeah, we're the nutbags.
We're the nutbags. But no, we've been accused of being negative, but
we're
being we're trying to be honest. And we would like nothing more than for everything to open. Now there are still, some hotels are still closed, and haven't opened yet. Some are supposed to open, later this month. I think the Mirage is supposed to open this month, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yes, very soon.
Yeah, I think
Extremely
it's
soon.
August 31st or something, but it's been closed up until now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so not all the hotels are open.
Yeah.
I think it was the Palazzo is only open on the weekends.
Only
They
open the
were
weekends.
open but because of demand. So
Cosmo, I spent some quality time there yesterday.
yeah,
They were having what was it, $150,000 slot tournament. It was as I walked through the casino floor on level 1.
yeah,
Um, Unfortunately, I didn't see a lot of people.
yeah,
Those people I did see were following the rules. Well, they have to. And I have to reiterate again, the Las Vegas properties that are open are very strict.
yeah.
You will be asked to put on that mask.
If you don't have one, they'll give you one.
Some properties are even having people wear it while eating. You eat, you put the mask back on, or drink, specifically bars.
Can you poke a hole in it?
Yeah, right. But Las Vegas is open and opening many different things in the coming days, and Cosmo looks great. I mean, it's clean, boy.
Yeah,
and they're definitely making an effort.
Yeah. Now I notice every day on the news, they have the COVID update.
Yes.
And try to keep things in perspective.
Yeah.
Worldwide. A couple of weeks ago, Japan had its largest one-day testing of COVID-19. They had about 1,000 cases in one day. I think it was 1,200. Now, remember, that's a country of 100 million people.
Yes.
And most of those cases were actually in Okinawa on a U.S. naval base. So, but yeah, it's in Okinawa. But anyhow, here in Clark County, a couple of weeks ago, we had 1,000 cases just here. It was been coming down. I noticed it was now yesterday was back up. I think we had 700, something like that, but it was in the 200s, the 300s, 400s, something like that. The last few days, except for yesterday. Right. So the recovery rate is going up. I think it's about 87.5%. Now, what they define recovery, because I wondered that. I said, well, wait a minute. If I take the number of cases here and I subtract people who died, how come that's not, what happens to all these other? And you have to test negative twice.
Right.
That constitutes you have, quote unquote, recovered.
Okay.
So we have a friend of ours who has now, quote unquote, recovered.
Yes.
Because she has tested negative 2 times. So
okay.
That's good for her.
Well, if you see in the coming weeks and months and days, if you see Las Vegas's marketing go out there and they for some reason listen to John and I and say, what type of shows would you like? Well, vote for the Showgirls, and vote for any show. Actually, let's get our folks back to work.
Yeah, it was always fun. I mean, you would see them out on the street. You could tell, wow, look at her.
Yeah.
She's not in costume, but nevertheless, she must be a showgirl.
Oh yeah.
And it was funny is when I first moved here back in the day when they used to have those little real estate magazines, right? You see them in the supermarket. They have those all over, right? But only in Nevada, only here would you open up the magazine, you go through it, and you'd see some property out in Pahrump, and it would say, ideal for brothel worker, which I actually saw, right? Right. But anyhow, there used to be these ads all over the place for Jeannie Sutherland. She was a realtor, and she had the big bouffant hair and, all blown out, blonde, bottle blonde.
Right.
And a realtor told me, he says, a lot of showgirls when they retire, when they can't kick their legs up high enough and they got to find something else to do.
Yeah.
A lot of them start selling real estate. Now, I'm not saying Jeannie Sutherland did that, but she could have because she looked the part, right? She looked the part.
Sure.
So she was everywhere. Then all of a sudden, when I moved here and then I left and I came back, I don't see Jeannie Sutherland anymore. So I did a little research myself and found out that she was convicted of fraud.
Oh, no. Jeannie.
In 2012, yes.
Oh, my.
In federal court for committing fraud. They were trying to... they were getting out false loans and then cashing in on them, basically for selling houses that were over the sale price and then pocketing the rest of the money or something like that. But poor Jeannie Sutherland.
Yeah, she can.
But yeah, either they do that or they cut hair. I know a woman. She looks fantastic. She's 40, and works in a hair salon. Now she worked, Cirque du Soleil. That
Yeah.
was her. It's funny how people say they have a day job and then they
Uh-huh.
work Broadway, but here people could have the night job, and their
Uh-huh.
day job is the part time one. So her day job was
Yeah.
but anyhow she worked at Cirque du Soleil, and before that she had been a Olympic gymnast
Oh, wow.
for Belarus
Okay.
back in the day. So yeah, they either cut hair or they do real estate. So let's get them back on stage.
Absolutely. And I have so many friends, and they know who they are, that I've worked with and photographed and filmed, and I really do wish the best for them. I want them to all get back on stage where they belong. But to all of our listeners, I want to thank you for all of your comments. I want to thank you for your patronage of our show, and just listening in and hopefully enjoying our discussions about Las Vegas. We love the comments, both good and bad. I try to mention them when I can, and hopefully that person on iTunes didn't give up on us. But if they did, we wish them well. But thank you to everybody, and we will do some more research and see exactly what more fun we can figure out about the history of Las Vegas. But for John, good to see you.
We're seeing you too, Jamie.
This is Jamie, and we will see you next show.